that's absolutely right. I don't think I have seen companies laying off lawyers after acquiring Wordsmith. Nevertheless, they have massive savings.
Gigz, it's great to have you here.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
So let's kick off a little bit with background about you. You worked 6 years at Microsoft, 10 years at Meta. How did you get into industry and how did you spend so much time at these companies?
Yeah, so my career path was pretty typical for Eastern European country, like I'm from Ukraine originally. So in school, I basically got into what's called competitive programming. That's algorithms and doing competitions all over the world. So I participated in that in school, participated in that through university, and this kind of like algorithmic problems are really good practice for interviewing to big companies. So in my last year in the university, I basically did an interview for internship at Microsoft in Denmark. And yeah, like as I mentioned, like it was pretty easy to pass given the kind of algorithmic competition that I was doing. And I moved to Denmark and joined Microsoft. Which was a very interesting experience. So they have the headquarters of Dynamics AX in, like now I think it's called Dynamics 365 in Denmark. And it's a massive enterprise software, like really, really big. It was a very interesting experience as, like my first real job to get into like massive software and learn about all the different patterns and how big software is being built. However, it was also very slow. Like the release cycles were actually several years. And like over time, I started thinking, okay, maybe I should go and try in some younger and more modern companies. Facebook opened right then office in London. And I think I was second person interviewed to the Facebook London office. And Of course, I took the job. And that's where I spent 11 of my next years of career. I joined as a software engineer. I pretty quickly transitioned to management after that and spent, about like 7 or 8 years in management and then transitioned back to IC at the very end. There were a few reasons for that. So basically, first of all, Facebook at 2013, that's when I joined that, like that was absolutely mind-blowing company. Like they were really focused on building product. They were really moving fast. And there was a lot of nice energy around building things. And I really enjoyed it immensely. And I first worked on different search products that Facebook has. Then I worked on augmented reality, putting bunny ears on people's face, which is actually a very interesting problem. And like it's both complicated technically and it's very visual. So it's actually fun to work on. But then, like over time, I started feeling that company became bigger. Like a little bit of politics emerged, the processes slowed down. And also like at the same point of time, I was moving up the ladder as a manager. And I think like quite similar to you, like I started feeling like I'm actually detached from the product building. And I found it honestly less exciting. Like I feel like that drive of building things is actually like what I want for my career. Like that's what motivates me. So at that point of time, I decided to switch back to IC. And I saw it twofold. So maybe I actually will be quite happy as an IC at Facebook rather than being a manager. But also, like it was good to, like in a way relearn how to build if I would decide that I actually will leave the company and try to build something on my own. And I spent like a year actually doing IC work. It actually went pretty well, but I still feel like it's not good enough. It's not as exciting as it was before. So that's when I decided to leave, and I started looking into several different things. So I actually like built like 2 small prototypes of different products with different people, even still while working at Facebook. And then eventually I settled. So I got introduced to my current co-founder, Ross McNair. Interestingly, it was pretty random occasion. Like I just told one of my colleagues that I'm going to leave, and he said, "Oh, I know the guy who is actually also looking to leave his current place." And we got together, we started hacking. Ross, at that point of time, already had this idea of building legal product and utilizing AI, which was very compelling because legal industry was not very well penetrated by technology before. And AI seemed like is technology that can change that. So we started doing that. And then eventually Ross quit his job, I quit my job, and we started Wordsmith.
Yeah, so the background on Ross, because I'm friends with Ross from a long time ago. He's a lawyer who then became a software developer. And I remember when I met him in Skyscanner, he was already talking about how when his law firm, when he worked, he automated a part of his job, and it used to take a really long time for lawyers, like a whole day, to do something, because it was an intern, and then it took him an hour, and he did all this free time. And I always wondered, like, if he's ever going to do something about law and technology, and now here we are.
Yeah, it felt like a really good time, and you're absolutely right. Like when I learned about legal industry, I was amazed how many different routine tasks they have. Right, like they had a role actually of a person who would just type in dictated notes. Right, so senior lawyer would dictate, and someone will write it down, bring for handwritten markup, and then change the document in Word. So yeah, it's actually like it's pretty interesting that industry stayed with these practices for so long and didn't adopt tags that much.
So what does Wordsmith do?
So Wordsmith, you can think about it as a platform for in-house legal teams. And the main difference, so in-house are the lawyers that are embedded in the businesses and are operating as part of the business, in contrast to law firms where lawyers is the business as a whole. And so in-house lawyers' business is actually, like, their job is very diverse, right? So they are doing contracting, they are helping with negotiations with customers, with vendors. Sometimes they are doing some HR responsibilities. Sometimes they are taking care of mergers and acquisitions. So it's extremely broad set of tasks that they are doing. And Wordsmith, you can think about it as roughly three things. So one is really broad set of tools for lawyers to help them accomplish all these different jobs. So we have, for example, a tool for contract drafting. We have a tool for contract review. We have a redlining tool that helps update documents based on natural language instructions, all the way to, like very simple things, like, for example, converting PDF to docx or translation. Like for engineers, that sounds funny, but actually for lawyers, this tool is quite appreciated. And like it's convenient to have it in single tool belt. Then second thing is that we have integrations with all the different parts of the system where business operates. So obviously we have integration with Google Drive and SharePoint for document storage, and some more legal specific ones like iManage. We also have integrations with different project management tools. So for example, Asana or Monday.com or other ways. So basically the idea is that Wordsmith can be really easily plugged into businesses and operate within it. And then third, and probably most important, is a framework for building agents that lawyers can use, like building and configuring agents that can actually operate all these tools, all these connectors to perform tasks. And you can think about scenario, so for example, in sales, right? So sales will be sending out terms to customers, they will receive it back redlined. And usually it was a very long process because they need to go to lawyer need to manually review, do another iteration, etc. And Wordsmith allows to automate these processes to a very high degree. So for example, now when contract is incoming, it's automatically picked up by Wordsmith agent. It checks it against policy that lawyer set up. And if there are no high-risk items, then it can go back directly to the counterparty, and like sales can be informed, like what changes need to be made and things like that. But if there are risky points or something that lawyers can review, then Wordsmith can surface it to human, get the approval or the changes required, and then continue the process.
Interesting. So I sense some parallels with code review here.
Yeah, that's really big part of it. It's called escalations in the legal world, but yeah, that's exactly that, right? So there is a work that we done by humans or by AI, but then there is a process around reviewing. Usually, in some bigger companies, it might require multiple levels, right? In engineering, we rarely have this practice that you need to have several layers of people reviewing that. But yeah, in legal industry, that's pretty common.
And I guess it's a good question on, we're wondering what AI might do with software engineering, but what could AI do with in-house legal teams? What result do companies see who use Wordsmith? Because you mentioned that things can be a lot faster because of agents, because of workflow. Sounds like everything is one place. Like, what's the benefit they get out of it?
Yeah, so I think there are two main benefits. So one is exactly what you said, that processes are flowing faster, because that's pretty common knowledge in the industry that in-house legal teams are not the most favorite teams in many organizations because they are gatekeepers. Sometimes they take time to review things. Sales cannot move faster, which is a problem. And with this automation, it actually, like the process becomes much more streamlined, and both sides are happier, right? So like lawyers can focus on some more interesting job and like on what's matter, and sales can move faster and don't get blocked. And second thing, so the big part of business spend is actually external legal counseling. So in-house legal teams usually not very big, and when there is a lot of work that needs to be done, they use law firms or extended consultants to
offload some of their workload.
Yeah, exactly. And again, like Wordsmith can help do a lot of these things automatically.
So do I sense correctly that if a company would buy a solution like Wordsmith, it doesn't have to be Wordsmith, but what they would probably get out of it is not like, oh, I can have like fewer in-house lawyers than I had before, but I can spend less on external consulting because my team did not have time for that, and like they needed to do these red lines and all these manual things, and like they'll be maybe just more efficient, and maybe they can learn the business more or have more time, so like they can just throw up did I sense this correctly?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. Actually, like I don't think I have seen companies laying off lawyers after acquiring Wordsmith, but nevertheless they have massive savings, right? So like we have seen savings up to 80%, like savings on this external spend that is coming from Wordsmith.
So the reason I'm asking you, because I'm trying to draw parallels between software engineering as well. You know, you guys are experts in the legal in-house domain. I trust Ross, so I know that you are. But when you said, I think you're the first one who said like, okay, we're saving a lot on external legal consulting that our team could have done, but we didn't have the bandwidth. I'm also hearing in the industry like, oh, you know, Accenture and some of these consulting companies are struggling. And I wonder if it's something similar that now with AI tools, a lot of the teams no longer can say we don't have time to like build this project. We actually can do it now because we're now spending less time on this. And I wonder if this might play out in the rest of the industry. Yeah,
I think that's like basically TLDR consulting firms are probably in trouble, right, with AI. Like they are the first ones that might
or I wonder if there will be just need to change how they consult. Like I'm sure there will be demand. Maybe it's more specialized or maybe something specific to AI. But yeah,
right.
That's an interesting one.
But not basic like overflow work as it has been happening before. So it needs to be more value add.
Okay, I go into an engineer into like Wordsmith. What is your tech stack?
So for the production tech stack, we basically have, like pretty standard set of technologies that startups are using. So AWS is where we host our compute. We have serverless execution models. So we are heavily using Lambdas. We are heavily using Fargate. It's long-running serverless functions. So the most of the tech, like the backend is in Python. For storage, we are using DynamoDB, S3, OpenSearch, Redis. So again, like pretty classic. Inference, so we split between all the different providers. So we have some inference on AWS with Anthropic models. We have some inference on Azure, also with Anthropic and OpenAI, and obviously GCP for Gemini models. Our front end is Next.js hosted on Vercel. Appear to be very, very convenient tool to get started quickly. So that's like pretty standard tech stack for the company. Interesting thing, our AI frameworks, so for example, LLM, routers, or agent framework, it's all in-house built.
Oh, really?
Yeah, mostly I think because of the timing. So we have started pretty early, and at that point of time, frameworks were not as good. So we tried LangChain, for example, like that was almost like a single option at that point, but we didn't like it quite much, and actually building it ourselves seemed pretty easy. And it's still at the point that, like now I probably would go for like Open Router or something like that, but the value of switching is not high enough, so we just stick with our in-house tech.
Yeah, the innovator's dilemma. When you start too early, you don't yet have the tools, and then later it's now a bunch of work for no immediate results.
Yeah. That's exactly right. I think like good thing is that AI actually really helps, right? So like maintenance cost is so much lower at this point of time, right? Like there is very little effort that we need to put to support new LLM features or I don't know, like new agentic features. Like building this kind of support within framework is actually much easier than it has been before.
So for engineering tooling, what are you using at Wordsmith?
For engineering tooling, we are using pretty vanilla setup. So actually half of the team is using Claude Code and half of the team is using Cursor. And we have even a little bit of a banter within the company, which team Claude or team Cursor is shipping more. So we have like week-over-week stats and we are checking it out. Some people are migrating. Like I actually was Cursor person for a very long time. I migrated to Claude Code about a month ago, so actually pretty recently. We have AI code review. We are using Codex and Claude. Claude is very heavily customized, so we use Codex in pretty much vanilla version as OpenAI recommends. For Claude, we basically completely revamped reviews that it's doing. We focused it a lot on architecture and engineering guidelines, so things that are very specific to our code base rather than general, like, finding bugs or like, I call it like smart nitpicking, right? So like identifying things that, are true but not that important to fix. And we also very heavily use in-house build tech. So we have solutions that we called Creatively Development Platform, which allows us to build a lot of things right from Slack with actually pretty minimal interactions. And it actually allows both engineers and non-engineers to build quite a few cool things.
So can you tell me about this building in Slack? Are you building software from Slack?
Yeah, we actually do. We are shipping quite a few PRs with just commands that are happening in Slack. So yeah, I can talk a little bit more about that. So we called we basically created a public channel within the company. The main idea is that people also can see what others are doing and learn from that and adopt the practices. And people basically can go there and ask Wordsmith, please spin up a VM and perform this task. And the tasks can be of different flavors. So one of the flavor is actually bug fixing or building a small feature. Another flavor is root cause analysis. So you can say, oh, this user had some issue in production around the same time, go through the logs and try to figure out what's wrong and maybe produce a fix if you can. Or one use case that is used a lot by non-engineers is different kind of product analytics. So one can ask, how usage of this feature by this customer changed over time. And if you have data in your amplitude or somewhere, it was easy for them to get it, but now they basically can query for pretty much random data there. The way this platform works is the following. So the core part of it is a service that allows to spin up a new virtual machine in the cloud. And that virtual machine has a setup that is equivalent to the setup that engineer would have. So it has all the tools installed, it has repository checked out. Moreover, the important thing is that both Wordsmith's backend and front end are running on that machine.
It's almost like a cloud development environment from flashback 4 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
Except it works this time and it's now used for a specific task.
Yes. Actually, I was inspired when building that by Meta's technology called On Demand, right? So they had it for engineers, just to use manually. But the idea was that instead of going through painful setup, you can just request a virtual machine and it's pre-set up for you and you can use it right away, right? But now it's this thing on steroids, right? So you get this environment that is working, you can develop there, you can test there, but you also have Claude Code sitting there and this Claude Code can receive tasks from anywhere, including Slack, and perform operations. And then, the Claude Code can prepare PR for you. What is more interesting, Claude Code can also click buttons, right? So it can bring up a website and it can do a manual test pass on the feature or bug that it just did. It can record screenshots, it can record a video, and all this content is attached to PR, right? So when I ask, Wordsmith spin up a VM and add a new jurisdiction into the product, right? It will go and create this machine, get Claude to build it. Claude will take screenshots, create PR. PR also is fed back to virtual machine as well. So if there was a CI failure or if there was automated code review comment, it will go back to machine. Claude will do some more work, update PR. So it will do that until it's all green. If human comes in and submits review feedback, again, the same iteration cycle. And then in the end, PR is basically ready to merge.
Wow. So this sounds like even less hands-on development. What about unit tests? What about code quality?
So code quality, of course, it is extremely important problem, right? Because increasing velocity with like automated like feature building process is very risky. So we had to invest a lot in making sure that AI code quality that is being produced is up to the high standards. There are a few things that you need to do. So I think like one of the most important is just invest in your guidelines, right? So we have a massive library of skills and they describe things, like data modeling, right? So like these are the principles that we are using during data modeling. Layered architecture, right? So it will say that, like your data access layer should never call into service layer. Your service layer should never call into your API layer. Or, security and data sanitization, that every endpoint should have a data sanitization, it should have a call to check permissions, etc. So all of it is codified. And then these skills are used both during code generation, but they are also used during code review, right? So automated code review will also be checking, and like that. That's why we heavily customize our code review to check against these guidelines and make sure that like all of them are being adhered in the PR that was produced. And then finally, so human is still always in the loop, right? So human will still always make the final accept call on the PR. We give humans some hints, right? So we also generate an automated kind of summary, like whether we think this PR is risky or not, what areas human might need to focus on reviewing. And also then when human is making comments and requesting changes, this will all be fed back, again, an automated job that will update our skills, right? It will prepare an update and it will say, like AI code review missed this point because this was not codified in the guideline. Let's update it in this way. And basically like, keep evolving these guidelines over time.
So do I understand that a bunch of devs inside Wordsmith mostly use Slack to develop, or am I misunderstanding that?
Yeah.
Do they also have their IDEs open?
Not quite.
First, who is using this feature typically to like go in Slack, tell something, add a list of jurisdictions, it goes up, does it, here's a video, here's a test, looks good.
Yeah. I would say it's half and half, on different points. So on the using Slack development, it's roughly half and half between engineers and non-engineers. What engineers will typically be asking there is root cause analysis and bug fixing, right? Like that's the most common. So something happened, go investigate the logs, prepare a fix. Or like a small feedback request, like we also do it like on feedback channel. So basically when raw feedback from our customer support or account executives comes in, some things are easy enough and then engineer can spin up a VM and like get this fixed. Non-engineers are mostly using it for analytics and sometimes for root cause analysis as well. Much more rarely for actual bug fixing, though sometimes they do. Designers and product managers are using it often for prototypes. So basically building something bigger, but something that we know will not ship as is, but just to communicate the intent, communicate how a feature might look like. Now to the question of like whether engineers are building everything from Slack or not. Definitely not. So every engineer has their own development environment as well. I would say it really depends on the type of work that an engineer is doing at this point of time. So when you're building a big feature, it's still much more convenient to build it on your own machine because you need much more back and forth with Claude, right? You need to be able to like comment on plans. Sometimes you need to actually browse the code. So it's definitely much more convenient. But if you're more in bug fixing mode, so for example, you're on call or something like that, or just, like your team has plans this week more focused on bug fixing than building something new, then actually this Slack development becomes very efficient because you can spin up multiple VMs at the same time. The work will be done. You go and check it. So that's actually where we see real speed up happening.
You spent 10 years at Meta. You were a manager for a long time. How big of a team did you have?
So the biggest one I had was 55 people. Like I didn't mention directly, but yeah, like that was a size
so
organization.
you went through from small teams, large teams. You met a lot of managers. Like you know how like teams operate or used to operate. At Wordsmith, like what you described is it feels kind of AI native. I don't like to overuse the term too much, but like, you're using AI in the development workflow, in your tooling. You built your custom tools. You built it earlier than when a lot of these were available. So I think you're a good example of an AI native startup trying to do the best that you can. How is the work of an engineer different now than it was pre-AI at the likes of Meta? And how is an engineering team working differently?
So I would say the difference is very significant for multiple different reasons. I'll describe engineering team first. This also boils down to how team composition looks like. So at Meta, there would be usually pretty balanced team structure. So there will be like some very senior person on the team who is a tech lead. There will be several mid-level engineers who are like the most productive people. And
the workhorses of
exactly,
the, right?
Exactly.
I think we used to joke that like Meta and Uber and all these, that they run on the L4s.
That was exactly true. Like L4s were the most productive engineers of all. And then L3s, right, the junior engineers, like they were in training, right? So they were basically learning the ropes. So at Wordsmith, it's different because of the way we hire. So we focused on senior hires pretty much predominantly, mostly because like that's kind of profile that really thrives in the new world, right? Because you want people to be able to use AI, but then to put enough guardrails, right, to avoid committing slop, right? And like from what I described, iterating on guidelines and like architectural style, etc. Like you need people with experience to be able to do that. So that makes it very big difference. So we have the team composition is pretty much everyone is senior, which also means that a lot less management is required. Mm-hmm. And actually still coding a lot, like I probably coding like 50-60% of my time. Mostly because, I just don't need to support people as much as previously was needed. They are very self-driven and, pretty easygoing. Sometimes, some management requirements pop up. Of course, there is a downside, kind of longer-term growth and career coaching, right? That suffers a little bit. But at the same point of time, I feel like it's offset by, just using new development practices and learning through doing. So I think, it's exciting to discover that together.
How have team dynamics changed? Because before AI, there used to be a lot of code review. We used to argue about code reviews for health's sake. Like you would get into fights about code reviews. There used to be architecture meetings. In when we sat in the same office, we would talk a lot, just like outage investigations and so on. My sense is that you can do a lot more with agents. How, comparing to those times when you had these teams, when you oversaw, you led those teams, how is the team dynamics different now in terms of like what is actually worse, but what is better?
Yeah, so I think it's different, but actually not as much different as before. So like my opinion is that it's still super important to invest in architecture. Like I would say like even more important because again, like if you don't invest and you don't put the right guidelines and you turn your code base into AI slop, which at this point of time is not a good idea for sure for bigger products. So we still have a lot of debates and design discussions and arguments, but we have that less on the like kind of PR by PR basis, but more on when we put guidelines in, right? So like when we're discussing, okay, we're seeing this happening, right? So like either like a human with AI or AI independently produced this design and we don't like it, or maybe we like it, right? And like we have this debate and we arrive to the conclusion, okay, that's actually how we want to do it. So we put it into the guidelines in the code base. So I would say, like it's shifted, like the focus is shifted, right? So it's not on like every single PR base, but it's shifted on like specific important discussions, like mostly centered around architecture or like what technologies we're using or what guidelines we want to enforce.
What are the best models that you see for coding and for non-coding use cases?
Yeah, so for coding, we are using pretty much exclusively Claude Opus 4.8 at this point of time, often in fast mode. It's very tempting to use fast mode. Unfortunately, Fable is out of reach now. We tried it for a day and it was taken away. But Claude 4.8 is, Opus 4.8 is definitely a great one. For code review, actually Codex, I think we're running GPT 5.4 even we didn't upgrade to 5.5, but it is actually it's showing really good performance and it's finding issues that are quite orthogonal to Claude. So we are running actually both models in code review. And for non-coding, so that really depends on the task. So for very complicated tasks, and I would name driving agents, for example, so our core agent functionality is definitely Opus 4.8. Some very hard tasks like redlining, so basically going and editing Word document, which requires modifying raw or XML, pretty complicated. Again, Opus is shining there. For a lot of different use cases which don't require that amount of intelligence, but actually can benefit from lower latency, we are using Gemini models, usually Flash. We are using OpenAI models, GPT-5 Mini Nano. There is one model, a little bit of a dark horse called Mercury 2. It's actually really good, it's surprisingly good. It's very cheap, very fast. And it is pretty good at producing structured output. So if you need to generate a JSON or something, it usually will do a really good job. So we are using that model a lot as well.
Who makes Mercury 2? Is it open model?
I think they call Inception Labs. Yeah, that's a very small startup. That's one challenge with them is that they are so small, they don't even have usage dashboard and things like that. But they have amazing model.
I guess look out. There's a lot of models. Yep. What about the cost of these tools, the cost of development tools, and also maybe the cost of evals or running CI/CD? How are you seeing that change? How big of a concern it is? How expensive is it even?
Yeah. So actually, first of all, the main expense is still coming from serving production. So serving production traffic, it's trumping all other expenses by far from what we are seeing. In terms of engineering expenses, so that's where I try to introduce less savings in general. So I really like people to experiment and try different things. And of course, when things get out of hand, we clamping them down, but we do it usually retrospectively. So one example would be we started using Claude native code reviews that Anthropic built, and it is extremely expensive. And then when we are seeing how much value
it was like $15 to $30 per review, something like that.
Yes,
right?
exactly. Yeah, but I felt really strongly that we should try it, right? Because if it will boost our productivity significantly, then it's probably worth it. But we tried it and we found that that's not that much on top of our dual review with kind of our own flavor of Claude and Codex. And then we cut it. So we basically approach it in this way. So we try broadly, and then if expense mounts, we are seeing, whether it's worth it, whether it's not. For evals, I would say story is kind of the same. So, it definitely would be nice to be able to run eval set on every PR, right? So basically putting it into continuous integration, but that would be ridiculously expensive, right? that will be insane cost. So we basically tiered it. So we run our main eval set that we have for agentic chat. We run it on daily basis. And then again, we have automation that allows us to track regression. So we are trying to basically dial down and identify, when exactly it broke, right? If we see that the eval regressed a lot. And then for some less important evals, some will be running weekly, some will be running just on ad hoc basis. So if someone is touching a feature that is covered by a very specific eval, which doesn't happen often, for example, then they will just run it ad hoc.
And what kind of costs are we talking about roughly? Like running the full eval set, roughly how much would that cost?
So our, the one that we are running on the daily basis, that is, I think, 30 pounds per run at the moment. So, not as much, but again, we deliberately maintain it this way. Yeah. If we would run everything that we have, that would be hundreds of dollars, if not thousands. So that would be definitely a lot.
This is the reason to be smart about it. Yeah, I think evals is a really interesting one because it now puts a new dimension on CI/CD. It's not just latency and resource usage, but an explicit cost. What are some of your most surprising stories with AI? Some epic stories, like when it did something amazingly dumb, or it did this amazingly good thing.
Yeah, there were like a few interesting. I think like my favorite one, like I wouldn't say dumb, it's just funny, but we have bug bounty programs. So we have security researchers hammering our product and trying to hack it. And there was one researcher that was trying to get through a broken PNG, right? Like they were trying to like get access to some of our internal systems, and they were just sending that image to the chat over and over again. And first, Claude was trying to be constructive. So he was saying, like I cannot read this file. It seems to be corrupt, right? And it will try to like cater for user. And at some point of time, it switched to, like passive aggressive mode. So it was saying, something, no, or like, I'm here when you need me, or I'm here when you come up with better ideas. It was so hilarious. Actually, like from what I know, Anthropic actually have dedicated people working on Claude personality. And like I never pushed it that hard before to like see this part of its personality, but it was absolutely hilarious.
Nice. How do you think AI has changed your own productivity and the engineering team's productivity in areas that it's actually better, but maybe areas that it's maybe even worse?
So my feeling is that there are a few specific areas where I see massive increase. And, like, of course, like I think like in lines of code, like we have like 6x increase comparing to pre-AI era, right? Or like pre-agentic AI era. And in terms of PRs as well. But I think, like there are some things that I feel like are tangible outcomes on the product. So one really important thing is prototyping. So since prototyping becomes so much easier and so much faster, and it can be done right within the product, communicating ideas is much easier now. And I can see that, like we have very few misses on the features that we are building. Because previously, like you take, like to a certain extent leap of faith, right? Like you do some user research, which, like might produce or not produce good results. And then you build it, and then like maybe you'll figure out that you need to rework it. And now we can build multiple different versions, and we can have like our lawyer building something. And like we rarely will take feature as lawyer imagines it, but it's very easy to tease out what they actually feel is important about the feature. So I would say like the ability to deliver better product on the first attempt is definitely increased. So we are spending much less time on getting to a good quality of the feature. Second is long tail. Basically, the number of bugs and small improvements that we are making is insane. And like I would just like I wouldn't see team being able to allocate time for these kind of things before. Like my favorite example is our jurisdiction picker. So it's actually very interesting because there are many of them, right? And like there are like different like groups of countries that should be there, and it's basically like never-ending iteration, and you would never want to spend engineers' time on polishing it so much unless it's basically free, right? Which like I feel like it is now, because it's very easy to like polish this product by just like kicking off small commands, and that's it. In terms of like what's still not working so well. So I feel like bottlenecks are shifting, right? And like we're not resolved all of them. So previously, pre-AI era, producing code was the main bottleneck, right? And everything was centered on that. Now I think validation is the main one. So when AI produces something, it still requires quite a lot of work by humans to kind of validate and make sure that it's of sufficient quality. And like that's that's the current bottleneck that I'm seeing, right? So like I feel like if we can solve it better, and like we made a lot of progress, but I feel like if we can do even better job on that, we can unlock even faster processes going forward.
You spent 11 years at Meta on teams. You build products. You manage teams as well, and then you went to Wordsmith, where it was just a few of you when you started. What is different about this, both in the good, that is better, that's what you expected, but also things that are harder?
Yeah, so The good thing, like, is definitely the pace at which we can move, right? So, like, first, like, smaller team, easier to coordinate. Like, we are much closer to customer. Well, in metaphors words, like, that's like one of the closest to customers product, right? You can measure everything there.
Yeah.
But like, comparing to like building product like somewhere, like somewhere else in big company, like, it's definitely like nice to have like so direct feedback from customers. Coordination is pretty much effortless, and like as I mentioned, team composition is really big benefit. Like, it's really nice to be able to like work in the environment where everyone is like knowing what they're doing and like can deliver things quickly. On the downside, I would say like I didn't anticipate how much big tech is actually doing for their employees, right? So like Meta is doing things like gym on site and laundry and other things, but like, of course, like some more important things like lunch, right? Or like transportation or, like all the expenses, etc. And within a startup, like you need to set it up all by yourself, right? And, like especially falls on like my role and others to like basically provide like all these small things that you always perceive like, they're just coming for free. They just exist. But you actually need to work hard first to determine like which ones are actually important, which ones are not. And then second, just set it up.
So looking ahead, what's something that you're excited about at Wordsmith?
So I think, like the thing that I'm excited about the most is, I would say, like on the product side. So, like up until recently, the main way people used Wordsmith was like human-initiated work, right? So like someone would need to like open Wordsmith or go on Slack or send Wordsmith an email, get some work done, and then get that work out. But the transition that like is already started and like it's picking up pace is that we are automating these processes, right? So for example, like we are monitoring email inbox, we are triaging tasks automatically, and then surface works to humans. So we are at the beginning of this journey, and we see very much interest around that area and very like good initial customer uptake. And like I'm just excited to see it happening, and I'm excited, like we have this like nearly automated product building process from Slack. Like I'm really looking forward to see this level of automation, like actually for our customers in the legal space.
Awesome. Well, it sounds like there's a bunch of exciting stuff you built. Lots to look forward. Gigz, thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
This was great.